Mark in the count. The swing arm now coming back as our countdown continues.
Good afternoon / good evening, depending on where you are at. Welcome to a special Saturday edition of the Brick Something News. And today, as folks probably know, I'm talking to this guy, that direction. This guy, Nate Baertsch. What's going on, Nate?
How's it going, man? So good to see you, Brick.
You too.
What
You
Brick?
too.
Do I call you Sergio? What do we call you? Brick.
Either one is fine, but Brick is kind of just what folks know. So they'll be like, who's this Sergio guy he keeps referring to?
Yeah, that's the brand. We got to stick with the brand.
Kind of. It's the pirate toy names that we use. Anyway, thank you so much for finding the time to do this. I know we're all super busy, and we also want to keep it short, sweet, but we want to spend some time hanging out because we've got things to talk about. Yeah,
we've got a lot of things to talk about.
You're wearing a shirt that I was like, when we jumped on, I was like, oh man, I should go wear it, and I ran to the room, and I just like, oh, I can't find it. But can you tell us what that shirt's about?
This shirt is for the Mythic Meetup that happens in Sacramento, California, and it happens usually around the weekend of like May the 4th. We're all Star Wars friendly here, so yay!
Yes,
there's
totally.
that. It's not about Star Wars necessarily, but it's a Mythic Meetup. This will be our third year doing it.
Yep.
Iz Ramirez is kind of the muscle behind it, and we're gonna go. I'm gonna be there. Iz will be there. Owen Ortling from Four Horsemen Studios alumni will be there, and a bunch of other friends. And yeah, we're gonna maybe sell some figures. Just mostly, it's just like a meetup, and come see us, come have a good time, come talk toys, all that good stuff.
I love that it's maybe sell some figures because I know no one's gonna come to want to buy any toys. But yes, so actually, let rewind a little bit. The first time you and I got to meet, or at least the way I frame it, the first time I got to meet him was 2 years ago at that first Mythic Meetup. And
I can't believe it's only been 2 years, but yeah.
Yeah. And then I went again last year, and then we got to see each other ever so briefly we saw each other a couple of different times, but I only really got to speak to you at Legions Con, my first Legions Con this year. After I finished coming through the Horseman sort of shop, and then we exited and you were there. And I was like, oh my God, I haven't stopped to really talk to Nate, other than being blessed enough to be able to have been an intern for a day and sit and listen to you kind of talk shop and stuff. But like, other than that, I didn't really get to connect too much. Yeah. So I was thinking maybe we could revisit some of that conversation. And then because I had just come out of, a couple of days earlier, seeing what was revealed for the year. And I don't know if you remember, my question to you wasn't like, hey, there was a bunch of stuff we talked about, but the one thing I was like, so Nate, you got a lot of work to do this year. Like that was because I was thinking about all the things that were revealed. I was like, this is more work than usual because there's a lot of new things coming. So
it's a lot.
It's
going to be a lot.
We'll talk about that in a second, but Mythic Meetup. So as Nate said, May 3rd this year, Saturday, May 3rd, in the Sacramento area at this really cool place called the Galaxy Game Cafe, new venue. Slightly a little bit more open. It feels like each year things shift a little bit. Toy Fusion was awesome. They're still going to be a part of it. They're going to be there. But I found myself, I guess, willing and able to help out a little bit more this year. After the first 2 years, I'll share a little bit. I've shared on the channel before, I think. That first time I went, I was actually kind of nervous. I was like, oh my God, I don't know anybody there. And I'm 2 hours away. And I left, and then I was like, oh, do I go in? I was like, oh man, I'm going to meet Nate. I'm going to bring something for him to sign. And I had it in the car, and I got way too shy and dorky about it. So I just left it in the car, never asked you. But
oh man,
but it was fine. But like, it was, you know, at the end of the day, we just started talking, and you're like, hey, let's talk Lego and all this other stuff. And I share that story for anybody else who might be hearing about this meetup or any other meetup that is like, oh man, I'm not going to know anybody, and I don't know what's this whole thing about. As famously, the Mythic Legions community is known for its how hospitable it is, how welcoming it is, how non-gatekeepery it is in those kinds of scenarios of just like, hey, hello. I think it was Iz first who was like, you know, who recognized me, and then got to see you, and Walter was there, and it was really cool. And so my big pitch to everyone is like, if one, don't be shy like I was. And granted, I was 46 at that time. So like we all still suffer from that kind of stuff. But man, you walk in and it's like Cheers. And now it totally is like Cheers. It's like where everybody knows your name, and
for sure.
And it's a fun little community. So it is May 3rd. Actually, before that, let me go ahead and do this properly. I'll throw this up here, and let's share. Let me do this weird YouTube magic. Woo! There it is. So I'll throw this up here. I would ask everyone who's watching this right now, if you aren't already, go follow us over on West Coast Mythics on Instagram. Yours truly is doing some stuff, like helping organize a bunch of different things, along with some really great people. You already mentioned you mentioned Owen, Jason Albrecht, James Burns. Is that it? I did this last time. Sorry, James. And a bunch of other cool folk. Angel Nolasco.
I see Mike. He's the one that did this.
Yeah, that's right. Mike did the. And so I'm going to go ahead and ask you all to do that, add that. I'm going to ask you to stare at this and see who's there while we go and say hello to everybody who's in the chat. First and foremost, someone who's maybe a little north of us, or a little north of me, sorry, and a little north of the meetup. What's up, Blake? Recon Rage. And let me do this. Sorry, man. There you go. So that it's a bad host thing to cover up the guest's face. But what's up, Blake? I believe he's up in the Oregon area. It is Needless Ephemera time. We got a double dose of the Needless Ephemera this week, by the way. It's today with Nate, and tomorrow with another person who's going to be at the Mythic Meetup. Brian, Endless Fables, is here. We are changing to Saturday. Actually, no, we are adding Saturday because there's a lot to talk about. And these next couple of weeks actually will sort of be teasing the Mythic Meetup. So Josh Brown's a special Saturday stream. He would love to share this story because Josh Brown is awesome. He'll never forget his first convention ever, PowerCon 22, talking to you with his son. Awesome. Nate showed a genuine interest in Logan's art and shared very kind words.
That's
well done, sir. And then he gifted him a Hordak print as it was close. As it was close to what he was interested in, a darker, more horror vibes. Look at his kid, so metal. That was awesome, and I've heard him share that story before as well. Josh is awesome. Shout out to Josh for always posting about the news episodes. Zio, what's going on?
Keep drawing.
Yes. Zio, what's going on, man? Glad you could stop in live. Kevin Hamilton is here, aka Kev HTX. Hello. Rick Jones. Yes, it's a Saturday. Dave Orkin is here. Hello.
What's up, Dave?
And Rick Jones not only wants to acknowledge the day, but wants to say hello to you.
What's up, Rick?
Brian Carr saying happy Saturday and wants everybody to know Nate's art is amazing.
Thank you.
And Blake does say hello properly. Simple Tricks and Nonsense. Look at all those cool collections behind you guys. simple tricks and nonsense, bringing like all these little toy things and these little plastic people to real life with their awesome cosplay.
They're amazing.
Love it.
It's good to hear from you guys.
Kevin says something that's actually kind of something I'd love to help maybe talk to more people about. He's saying we need a Texas meetup. And I will just say, if you missed the beginning, again, I was all shy about going. Even last year, Nate, like I showed up there. It took me a while to leave, even though I'd met you all. Like, anyways, the voice is in one's head. And now here I am, just like, hey, I want to help, and doing design work and like, helping figure out logistics and stuff and promo. Because at the end of the day, Kevin, and anybody else who's listening who says we want a Texas meetup of Mythic fans, it's all about kind of a grassroots efforts of folks who are like, hey, we want the studio to come out. Because the reality is, obviously, for the studio, it's kind of it's a haul to bring all those toys out, figure out what to do with them, who can show up. For the East Coasters, sometimes it's a drive, and they can do that themselves. And so that's kind of what this thing is about. And that's kind of where I'm at after going to Legions Con. There are a couple of other folks like Wade from Unparalleled Universe who was there. And I know he's kind of on the same tip of like, man, why don't we have kind of more things with that sort of Legions Con vibe of like indie toys, customizers, artists, like in that same space. And so I was like, oh man, I want to help out with the Mythic Meetup, which is about 2 hours from where I live. But my personal goal, and hopefully with Wade's support, we've been talking about, and some other people here, is to maybe do a second thing here in NorCal, right near the Bay Area. So I say that all to Kevin and anybody else. Make it happen. Like, get together, make it happen. The studio's down to help. People like Nate are super friendly and down to like talk to you about all that. So
yeah. And the cool thing about the meetups, and maybe this is preaching to the choir a little bit, is just that it's so much fun for all of us to get out there and rub shoulders with everybody. Because we're all geeks, we're all toy collectors, we're all into the same stuff. I just happen to work for one of the coolest toy companies in the universe. But at the same time, it's like every one of us at the studio, we get energized. We love going out and being with the fans as much as we can. Obviously, as was mentioned earlier, there's a lot of work to do this coming year. Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of my time has to be chained right here, right exactly where I'm sitting, and just drawing and painting. And so those precious weekends or weeks that we get to go out and see fans that means something big to all of us, I think.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that must give some sort of new energy, right?
Totally.
That's great. And when you were talking about you working, I pictured The Simpsons, where they're doing the Simpsons movie, and then they're like, draw. I don't know. That's a reference.
That's like Chris over me.
Oh, is that what it is?
Chris, draw. Yeah. Get going. Go faster. You shouldn't be on this show. Get back to work. Yeah.
Yeah, 100% though. Yes. So that was my pitch to Kevin and anybody else. I'm hoping maybe Southern California too, with Jeremy coming out to La Mirada this past year. I hope that becomes a regular thing. When I was down in WonderCon a couple weekends ago, people coming by the table. I'm always asking, what are the lines? I was at the Spiro Toys table, and I'm always asking, what are the lines you collect? We end up talking about Legions, and people are like, yeah, we wish there was something more. And so there's interest. I hope it happens everywhere. RG, what's going on? Thank you so much for jumping in. Great to see you. KJ, what's going on? Hey, Steph, action figure girl, who will also be here next Sunday to give us her wisdom and experience with all the I call it the embarrassment of riches of being able to live on the East Coast and see the Horsemen in full effect multiple times in between Legions cons. Got Heinrich in here. Hello. And Thanos Copter is here. Hello, sir. Blake, we said Blake already, but I'm going to say Blake again because he's got a lot more info here. He says, hey, Brick, how come if it's a West Coast meetup, whereas Oregon and Washington on the... You know what? I hear you. I didn't name it. They inherited it 2 years ago. I kind of wondered about that myself. But maybe because there aren't that many and we're trying to find a place, for people to converge. But you're right. When and if the PDX Meetup and the Seattle Meetup and on, and the Vancouver Meetup happen, we'll gladly change. Well, I can't speak for everybody else, but I would understand the need for a name change. John and Josh, the Collecting Brothers. John both of them were actually here last week, and I don't know if you remember them, but John actually met you at Fanex. I think he's near you.
Yeah, we're in the same neck of the woods, the
That's
Collecting Brothers and I. Yeah, we're out here in Utah.
Love it. Hey, Mythic Meetup Utah. Just saying. Okay. So it looks like a couple of folks are hoping to be there, including Rick. I know Thanos is talking about coming through. Gabriel, what's up? Happy Saturday, sir. And let's go ahead and move through. Thank you again to everybody who showed up today for the special Saturday edition. We are here to talk with this guy. Again, Nate will be here. That's him up here at the Mythic Meetup, May 3rd, generally Sacramento, California. Technically, it's in Citrus Heights at 7700 Sunrise Boulevard. I need to change the flyer because it should say Suite 1900. But it is a cool space. The Mythic community up there, I guess, on the first Thursdays of every month, do like a painting thing. So there's a little bit of a sort of there's a bit of a little scene growing in this area, which again was part of the reason to have it there. And I'm excited. So I will be posting more on this account with more details, but check it out. Like the studio will be there. And by the studio, we mean you this time, right? You're the sole rep. We unfortunately, Walter left California.
I know that guy. Man,
it's a little bit of extra work for him to have to come over here and do it. So he won't be there.
My brother from another mother, man.
Yes.
I'm going to miss you, Walter.
But Nate will be holding it down. And I don't know if you know, but can you say much at all about the kinds of things that will be there from the studio? Is that at all possible? I know generally don't like to say.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think generally, if Jeremy were here, he'd be sitting on my shoulder saying, can't say any of that.
Right.
Although it is known that there's a certain barbarian that is making its way around. I can't confirm or deny, but I would guess that something like that might be out there.
Cool.
I've
heard of such legends. Yes.
Yes. It's always a hint whenever we as a studio, when we post about an event, which I think Jeremy will be posting something soon. Usually there's an image of a figure, and usually that figure makes it to that show.
Okay.
Usually, in fact, I don't think it's ever been a case where that's not been the case.
Well, I will hold out for that before being presumptuous and making flyers with such images. But what I've been saying,
I can confirm, yes, there will be action figures to buy, though. Yes. I mean, that goes without saying. That's
okay. 100% there will be figures.
Sell figures.
And I've picked up a couple great figures there. They'll be at the sort of normal con prices. So come out and check that out. In addition to, you'll see there Nate Baertsch, David Williams will be there coming up from Arizona.
Awesome.
Which is awesome.
My other fellow artist friend. I'm so glad that he's going to be there. I'm so happy about that.
Pound for pound, the Legions community is filled with talented people, man. Geekology will be there. And that's James's stuff. Jay's Armory, Jason's stuff. Mike will be there. Awesome. Spiro Toys.
Excellent.
That might be me.
That
might be me. That is me.
That's okay. Man, I love you guys' stuff.
Angel Nolasco will be there. Michael Duggar, Insightful Imagery, whose photos I've been using, and he does amazing props. Great guy out of Oakland. Tim Fung will be there. Toy Fusion. Carver Customs is coming out, which is really, really cool.
That is awesome.
Oh, mm-hmm. Owen.
Maybe traveling the farthest, I'm guessing.
As far as I know, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And then Owen will be there, and we talked to him tomorrow, actually. Him and Steph Delatour. Again, Steph will be our Detour Customs, I should say, will be tomorrow our East Coast sort of rep, and then next week Steph O will be our East Coast person. This guy named Brick Something, and then Cody Sebelis, and more and more and more. So
it's gonna be so fun.
Cool. And I, again, will be probably bugging you all tomorrow, the weekend after that, and the weekend after that, as we keep talking about this Mythic meetup. Because even if you're not in the area, please let folks know on Instagram and all those things, whether you know West Coast people or not. We just kind of want people to be very aware that these kinds of things happen and will be happening all over the country. And as I gave my little pitch earlier, I'm happy to talk to people about how it all sort of evolves, mainly from interested fans. So, okay, let's talk about you and your work.
Okay. Now the readership's going to go away. But anyway, yeah.
No. That's why they're here. They're like, whatever, Mythic Meetup. Let's do an artist spotlight. I just, sorry, Jeremy. I didn't want to highlight your typo there, or whoever's typo.
Oh, yeah. No,
as I just pointed out.
That would be, yeah.
That's the teacher.
It wasn't me this time. I'll put it that way.
That's
if you see it on the packaging, who knows whose fault it is? But I mean, I assemble everything on the packaging, so I should catch that stuff. But we can get into it later. But yeah.
All right. So this was an article from a couple of years ago, and it's actually sort of highlighting the moment when you kind of became an official studio employee person, as the PGG likes to say, as a member of the studio. And so how long were you working on Four Horsemen stuff, not necessarily Mythic, but Four Horsemen artwork, before you eventually sort of came on board as an actual employee? Do you remember?
It was 2007, so 18 years ago. Wow. It was 18 years ago. My gosh. It was the first job I did. I've said this in other places, but I'm happy to repeat it here. The first piece I did was for their FanX Seventh Kingdom line, and it was Ramathor. So Ramathor was their second figure in that line.
Mm-hmm.
And they as a studio wanted to reach out to fans. I was already a big fan. I was on their forums. They knew me from the forums. Yep. They also knew me from doing He-Man stuff with Val. And they just reached out. I get a phone call, and this was back in the day, 2007. You get a physical phone call from, I think it was CB that reached out to me and said, "Hey, want to work with us?" And I was like, "Duh, sign me up." Yeah. And then since then, honestly, it's been, I mean, obviously at the beginning, they only needed like one painting a year kind of a thing. It was like, this year we need Ramathor, next year we need Queen Alexandra, so on and so on. We're going to do this Kickstarter for Ravens. Can you do something for that? So it was sparse. It was here and there. And I was always happy to work with them, and it was always a ton of fun. And then, over time, it has built up, especially with Mythic Legions getting as big as it was, even at the beginning. I mean, as a studio, they were still trying to be as conservative as they could be. Yeah, look at that guy.
Was this the painting that you're referring to? Like, was this a composite of a couple things? No, it was a different one. Okay.
Yeah,
this was done later.
That's an anniversary, a 10-year anniversary for the studio. And so you've got Magma guys over there. You've got Seventh Kingdom. I think Gothropolis was on there, and Symbiotech.
That's right.
And it was
okay.
But I was doing this stuff for them. And their 10-year was 10 years ago, because we just celebrated our 20th. No,
15 years ago.
It was 15 years. Good grief.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. Yeah. When you said 2007 was how long ago, I part of me twitched. But yes. That's amazing. So I'm just curious. Go ahead. Well, I was going to ask, so that time they asked you to do one, but that work for them, but prior you were already doing toy work, right? And were you by any, like, how did they find you, I guess, was kind of.
I was sort of doing toy work. I wanted to do toy. I remember going to San Diego Comic-Con, and this was probably around either 2009 or 2011. And just hanging out with Eric Treadaway. We were geeking out about toys and stuff. We would talk TV shows that we watch. We were just becoming friends, essentially.
Yep.
And I just remember saying, I would love to get involved more with toy stuff. somehow.
Nice.
And so really all of the toy work that I've done, sorry, my wife's printing something
All good.
from upstairs.
She says, "Hurry up."
She's sending me messages via print. That would be awesome. No, we were talking. I just had said I wanted to do more toy stuff, and I remember it was shortly after that. They were working on classics. What's up, Trevor?
Yep.
Ryan Bink, all you guys. They were working on classics. I had done a pitch with them and George Djokovic. A pitch to Mattel for packaging that could have been really big, but didn't go anywhere. But then even after that, Eric would send me stuff for, like, I think if you look on my Instagram, I might have some of the early Tila drawings for the classics that I
have that. I have that queued up because was it a goddess in particular?
Yeah, it was goddess because
I know you have a special relationship with that,
yes.
And yes.
Yeah, so it was. Yeah, as soon as Eric gave me the Tila concept, he was like, I'm just curious. He just kind of threw it out there. I'm just mildly curious to see what your take on her would be. And I just went nuts with those concepts. I did a version of her like, this is probably what the normal figure should look like. And if you just switch these parts, you could get a goddess. And if you just switch these parts, you could get like a Filmation Tila and all this other stuff. Like I went overboard. I was trying hard. And it was... well received. His comment, I think, to me after the fact was just like, "Yeah, it looks like we're on the same page." And
very cool,
and it was cool, and he would just on occasion throw me some stuff, and then it wasn't until we were doing the Castle Grayskull, like when we got that phone call from Mattel, that was just huge. That was so cool. We couldn't help but geek out.
Yeah, and you know what?
In the final toy.
Yeah, I queued up some of the work, and the ones that you named are definitely ones that I pulled out to talk about. But
cool.
Let's go ahead and fast forward to your Legions work because, as I was saying, I have a bit of a design and art background myself, and used to do it professionally. And kind of that's why I asked you that question at Legions Con, because I was sitting there, excited about like all the new things that are coming this year from the Four Horsemen and all the new work. But then I started talking with my brother, who Ted, who you met briefly, who also is a creative background.
Awesome.
And so we were talking the whole time, like kind of breaking it down both as nerd fans, but as sort of like in our experience with creative work and business side of things. I was like, damn, there's like new lines, Infinite Legions, and there's a dragon. So I'd love to talk a little bit about the work that you've been doing more recently, and then a little bit about what you've got coming up. So, and all of this, most of it is pulled from his Instagram if you want to follow along, and I will gladly drop in links for those who are watching live and after the show. If you take a look at that sort of on the screen right now over by the Ghost of Christmas Present? Past.
Yep.
Past, who's chilling right here,
is
a QR code that you can check out if you're watching the replay to go to a document that'll have all of that. And I know Thanos is here if he's available to help. If you scroll down, you'll see it's in the usual spot. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about some things that I pulled out. Let's start sort of here. Because I got to hang out with Jeremy a couple weeks here on the channel and talked a lot about Baertsch for sure. But, he's pointing out that Baertsch really signals the move into the next story arc. So this first story arc truly was all about this, the Dark Four. And so
the Dark Four, yep.
You had this big old thing printed in like sort of fabric form at your booth at Legions Con?
I had a canvas version, I had a large poster version, and I had just your normal 11 by 17, which is all I have left. I might have some posters actually out at the studio.
Okay. And you had so this really was kind of like the culmination of what 10 years of storytelling essentially for this first arc. And these are the main antagonists for that first arc. And it actually sort of like built up over the course of that time, right? So of course, this was the final art for the Necronominus wave.
Yep.
When you work, because I know you're working all digitally now on this kind of thing, what is, knowing that you're gonna end up using this for both, digital and print and for different forms, anticipating maybe you're going to have to crop. How do you decide, so nerdy art question, how do you decide how much of the background to include, knowing that you might end up cropping for different uses and stuff? And how big are these files?
They're huge. So I mean, this one right here is like 2 gigs.
Okay.
It's big. But again, this painting, you have to take into consideration when you zoom back and you see that it's like all 4 on it's really big. That's what I talk about at Intern, I mentioned that what I try to do is I try to get from Chris and the guys to tell me what is the biggest box. What's the biggest canvas that I'm going to be working with and that I have to deal with. And Smart. Then from there, to answer your previous question, just catch us up, Mr.
It's fine.
To answer your previous question, I find that I paint the whole background now. When I was first doing some of these, I would just paint what I had to paint, and that just caused trouble for me down the road because we have to put this on a card back. Which is a very different format. We have to put it on. Now we're doing like hand packs and weapon packs, and those have different formats and they're different sizes. Yeah, exactly. So I kind of loosely think of those things a little bit, and on some level, and then on another level, I'm just going to paint the scene and hope I can pull something out of it that will work. So for the most part, like this background, it's all on one layer. Like I've not layered it.
I mean, I believe you, but I admire your you doing that, because for folks that aren't familiar, if you have layers, you can kind of move things around and hide things around. But once you're committed and you paint over stuff, that's it. It's kind of like real life painting. Is there a reason you do that?
I just find it saves time, number one, for me. And then number two, if I have to do something that where I have to, like, most of the time what I run into is I have to like bleed out an image, or it's either the top or the bottom. So it's either the sky or it's either the sky or the ground or something like that, or I have to extend it out. And so I find it's just faster and easier for me to just be like, okay, I'll just take what's there, do a quick, there's a feature in Photoshop that's just like content aware fill. So it takes everything that I've painted. It's basically like AI art, really, but it's
reading what's there, the information that's there.
What I've already painted, and then extending what it thinks I would paint. And it never does a great job, but it's a good starting point. And then I just go in and fill in little pieces.
Got it.
There. And I just find it's easier for me that way because I tell people my job description is I spend an inordinate amount of time painting things on boxes that people are just going to throw away. Because at the end of the day, it's kind of it's packaging art. We're just here to sell the figure. But also, I say that, but at the same time, Eric and I both especially have always, with Mythic Legions and Cosmic and anything else that we do, we love the old Masters of the Universe, or the old Inhumanoids, and all that old 80s artwork where they just they wanted to show you that snippet of what this world is that these characters live in. And I always intentionally kind of leave it a little bit. I don't go nuts on the details, just because I feel like so much of that should just be filled in by your imagination. I want to give you just enough so that your imagination has a place to go and fill in the rest.
Sure.
Kind of a thing.
Well, I just want to stop you there for a second, because you said, people are just going to throw it away. Thanos keeps the art. Freaks Figures keeps all of his packaging. And I will tell you, maybe in a closet in my classroom, there's a bunch of Mythic Legions packaging.
Awesome.
Zio also keeps all the boxes, and Thanos actually really appreciates the insert art for photo backdrops, especially like from the Figura or like the bigger boxes and stuff. So
Very cool.
it definitely helps sell these toys, which is this funny dynamic, right? We know like whether they were cartoons back in the day or the card art, but it I don't know. It is art, man. It really is. And I know we live under capitalism, and so it sometimes the art gets relegated to like, oh, it's this advertising piece, but it really is so much more, as clearly what people are saying.
Absolutely.
Which is, thank you for putting this out in the universe, Solo. You're not the only one, which is why we need the art book.
Yep.
And so, yeah. Well, I'm not the only one kind of tripping on the one layer thing as
Okay, the
Solo
one
Center
layer.
said.
Let me
There's no control
clarify a
Z.
little bit. So it's all the background elements or the environment is one
Yes, the
layer.
background.
So obviously the
But even
characters,
then,
I've put them on their own layers because, and you'll see this on the boxes. If you compare one box to another, you'd be like, wait a minute, that moved a little bit. Yeah, it
yeah,
has to some degree.
yeah, no, absolutely, and
Which is
that's the
also why
beauty
I
of.
paint the whole background.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that as I was holding this up, right? So you're thinking about some of the larger boxes like this one for the 2-pack. And
Yep.
then we've got
In fact, that's awesome that you have that 2-pack. That 2-pack is the starting piece for this particular painting because
this is the largest.
That's the largest that will be. Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. For those of you who don't know, not only does he sort of paint the illustrations, but he's also doing the layout and packaging for the entire line. And then we end up with a crop, right, for the back
Yep.
of the Necronominous Wave figures.
Exactly.
So this is all geeky stuff that it sounds like Zio will follow and a bunch of. So like, forgive me for the rest of you who are like, just talk about the toys. But this is me and my nerdy background. I was like, oh, okay, managing production on this, and how do you do this? And okay, but back to the kind of larger story. There was this, which was a beautiful moment to sort of see all 4 of the Dark 4 revealed, and then prior to that, right in the Poxus wave, we got to see the 4. But since that was Poxus's reveal, and we would basically await Necronominus's reveal later. Kind of like, I love that. I love how you played with that. You in the studio played with that. And then we go back a little bit more, and we're looking at Alethea's moment. Mm-hmm. You see all the other figures there, and then Arethyr. And so, having some familiarity with Photoshop and everything, I'm kind of understanding how you're doing this in production, and I think it's brilliant. You've got kind of like, well, that aside, I will notice, I think for the first time today in prepping for this, I was like, oh, the characters flip. So Arethyr holds his sword in his right hand, and then he holds it, and then I also like the notion of turning things on and off, like the flames, which is kind of cool. Yeah. He's like, he's calmed down here because it's
in
dark.
That particular case, I kind of repainted Arethyr a little bit. Like I used the previous one as a starting point, and then I kind of went in and largely because I was still playing with in my head. It's like, no, Aletheia needs to be the center of attention. So because he was so bright, and I knew he was going to be so contrasty against all those blues, I didn't want him to be the main focus. I still needed her to be the main focus.
Yeah, so there are details that were lost in some of the flames, and then that need to be pulled back. Yeah, very cool. And then the sword, of course, is not on fire. But let me ask you about that whole premise. Like, how far in advance had you come up with the concept that, hey, with every wave, we'll sort of do a reveal? And how does that kind of creative decision evolve at the studio? Is that a conversation with you and Eric?
It was a conversation with me and Eric. It was when we were revealing the Arethyr wave. It was that first G-Con. Okay. And so I had previously done a handful of concepts for another project. I think we were pitching as a TV show or something like that. Ooh. And so actually the Castle Silverhorn piece came from that concept pitch, as well as this Arethyr piece with the Dark 4. I had just really quickly roughed up basically concept paintings of these guys. And Eric had given me, and we had seen them all already in his sketches in the comic book, in the very first comic book, he shows sketches of the Dark Four, his early ideas of them. And so I had I was like, look, we'll just keep these silhouettes and then reveal them each year that we do it. So that was decided back with Aerithir. So we were revealing to the world the Aerithir wave, and I was already thinking and having meetings with Eric about, okay, what are we going to do with this artwork? And here's something that we could try. And that was the theme that we stuck with, and that's what we carried through. So it was really nice that by Necronominus we were to the end of it, and it was a ton of fun.
Yeah, it's great from an artistic perspective. It's great from a storytelling perspective, and then ultimately from a marketing perspective. Because with every wave, it is sort of this like, I remember people kind of going like, he has a bow, and like, what's that about? And there's all that kind of creating that. Yeah, like I love it. And then I will say the moodiness. So just from an art perspective, man, great work. The colors, right? Shifting, giving each of them kind of their own color story. Oh, love it. Yeah, cool stuff. But anyway, so then you ended, right? Essentially the first arc. But before we get to kind of like where
just
things
like that, Mythic Legions is done. There isn't any more.
Yep, story's over. Yep. No, I have it on good authority from one Jeremy Gerard that we're moving into the next arc, and
it gets bigger and bigger. It's so beautiful.
Yes. And so we're looking, as I'll speak for myself, I'm looking forward to definitely the action figures, but I'm also looking forward to the artwork. Here we go. Let's go ahead and maybe move on to some of the older pieces that have come out throughout the life of the line. Not through everything, but I love this painting largely because of also the color story and the sort of like focus on the two of the leaders of two of the different sort of forces of good. Is there a name for the collective?
Yeah. Artemis at the time was very much the leader of the Xylona's flock, and then Hera is very much the leader in charge of Basilia's convocation.
Yeah. And so beautiful as far as like, again, telling story with both the characters, the sort of like posing, the colors, a little, hints at the magic or the power, if you will, all this like glowing stuff. Great stuff. I'm just curious though, like, because I feel like there was something that happened at Intern for a Day when, I don't know if you remember this, you were talking about your old work. Someone asked you about your old work or whatever, and you looked right up at Artemis. Am I right? Yeah. What it was Artemis that you were looking at, not necessarily Hera, right?
I think it was Hera, where I mentioned that I wasn't happy about something.
Yes, that was it.
It's Hera. If you zoom in on her hand holding the staff,
yes, it was the hands.
Like artistically, that just falls apart.
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe rush that one a little bit. It's not bad, but it's not.
No.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
I see it every time. Nobody else probably ever sees it, but I see it every time.
No. Yes. And we're, as artists and creative people, we're always hardest on ourselves. But part of this is you've been working on this line for 10 years, right? And doing art for it. And it's evolved. Both the art has evolved and the story has evolved, and you as an artist have evolved. Yes. So I'm kind of curious, just looking at some of these older pieces, aside from the hand, are there things that maybe you would do in more recent Mythic Legions work that you hadn't thought of when, back in the day when you're doing something like this? What are some of the things the ideas or maybe approach to the artwork that have evolved over the course of 10 years?
Some of my cue I take, I don't know if Eric knows this or not, but something I've observed in how his work has evolved in the figures, in the way he sculpts the figures. I admire and respect a lot of the stuff that he pulls out that is like, you can tell and feel that he's looking at real world armor. You can tell that he's looking at a lot more. He's looking into a lot of literature stuff that influences the types of characters that he and Jeremy are creating. I pulled Jeremy into it because Jeremy now, ever since he's come on, has also been a big driving force and a help in kind of creating some of the overall aesthetic as well. And it's one of those things where I myself as an artist, I was not comfortable with just painting back when I started. Like I was much more comfortable saying, "Hey, can I throw a piece of line art on top and just do some colors underneath?" kind of a thing. And but that's not what this line required, and that's not what Eric and I wanted to do. We wanted it to feel like nice, rich paintings. And so I feel like overall, and over time, if you look at this and look at like zoom in on Necronominus himself, you can just see that I'm enjoying and embracing being more of a painter and less of a draftsman, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Like there's still a lot of draftsman quality within this, I hope. But the way I approached it mentally is far more painterly. And likewise, I still continue to study under a lot of the master stuff. Like I still look at old paintings. I still go to museums and I just stand in front of a really rich landscape or a really rich portrait and just soak it in.
Love
be
it.
Like, how can I implement more of this into what I do? And sometimes I get opportunities to flex that, and sometimes I don't, and I just have to get it done, and so be it, so I can move on. But yeah, it's anywhere that I can, I try to, I don't know, I've always admired, and I try to do this myself. I try to practice what I preach, and that is just continue to study, continue to learn. Don't ever feel complacent in what you're doing. There's always room to improve, and so keep striving for that.
Very cool. Well, I definitely see sort of I don't know if necessarily it's about improvement or growth, but it's also like maybe your interests or what are your focus as an artist at the moment. You kind of see that shift. So I go back to this one, and this was not for the second version, right? Or is this an older piece of art? When was this used?
This is old. This was going to be at one point, I was going to be the artist doing some of the cards. The original collector cards from the first Kickstarter,
which I've never seen in person. I've only seen because that was before my time, but I've seen people share them.
But anyway,
okay. You were gonna. The plan was for you to do the artwork for those cards.
I was gonna do some of it. I don't think I was gonna do all of them, but I was gonna do the Leoseer stuff.
Okay.
And that's kind of where this came from, was that. And I was, yeah. And I look at this and I see, yep, that's old Nate Baertsch art right there.
And it is very, it's funny because you mentioned being a draftsman. It is a lot more line work, right? Little less on the painterly kind of like playing with,
Yeah, no, I was approaching this one more like a comic of sorts.
Yeah. And it's cool. It's really cool to see, man. It's fun because of what we've, well, at least what I have been used to seeing. Because I've only seen this here on your Instagram. I haven't seen this in the wild. So, very cool. And then, of course, you've gone through and done these. And the reason I want to highlight this one is some of your paintings, you get the opportunity not just to. It's doing a lot of work. It's sort of maybe showing us key characters at the time. But then also communicating like the vast battles, and like this is very much a world where akin to like something like Lord of the Rings, where we'll see like hundreds of or thousands of characters in a massive battle with fire and everything. And so it's this fun balance of like I see all that information here in the big picture, and then there are plenty of like obviously he's in the foreground or sort of mid ground, I guess. But focus there, we see Scapular, and then in the background we also see these character moments and stuff. So I just love the range because on the one hand you'll get like the Hera and Artemis kind of like real like this is the two with a couple of folks in shadow in the back, and this is like the massive scope of battle and war and all that. So must be fun to have that, to I don't know. There's something if we have time at the end to kind of highlight some of my favorite toy art. And oftentimes it's just like a character. You've been able to do scenes as well as highlight characters. Pretty amazing. I don't know. I'm telling you stuff you already know because you lived it. But
it's the best job in the world. Yeah. For me, anyway, it really is. Like ever since I
Yeah.
joined the studio, I left my other career in children's education, and anybody that I bump into or talk to, they're just like, "Man, you got there. You're living your dream." And I'm like, "Yeah, I really am. I'm very happy and blessed and lucky and all of that." But it wasn't without its work too. But yeah, and
Well,
it's a ton of fun. And there's so much more. Again, going back to what you had mentioned at the beginning of the show of just
mhm.
what's coming up. There's a lot. There's a whole lot.
I
Green thing.
swear I didn't
Big
mean to
giant green
make.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't mean to make you anxious about the future. But
No,
speaking
it's
of big
not.
giant green
It's
things,
excited. I'm excited.
good,
Look, I get to
good.
paint a box for a dragon. I mean, that's
Yes,
going to be exciting.
love that attitude, 100%.
Yeah.
Um, these were cool. It's just like it's again the variety that I appreciate, both of the line and then the way you're able to kind of like and show us the world while also showing the characters. I really like the balance. So this is kind of like the two pieces of it, showing us the trolls, giving us a sense of like these what it must be like to be these poor guys who are
Yeah.
dealing with the trolls. But
I would not want
I
to go
like the
up against
variety.
it. Yeah.
What's that?
I would not want to go up against any of them. Yeah.
No. I love your color work on this one in particular, by the way, just sort of like thinking about this blue light and how that might work on this more orange troll or what it does to this guy back here.
Okay.
So
Yep.
time check.
That was
I hear
my
you.
life. Yeah. It was time check.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear her. Let's see. And then I just wanted to quickly highlight, not only, again, are you doing big battle scenes or character focus, but there's a little bit of architecture
Yes.
going along. We don't have to spend too much time on it, but I am curious, to what extent are you and or the studio folks actually like looking at real architecture when committing to a look to share like this?
This was a fun one, in the sense of this was also originally a piece. What's up, Thomas? ¿Cómo se va?
Hey,
He's my French buddy. We speak French together.
ouais.
Très bien. This was another one of the concepts that then worked its way into the packaging eventually. And I loved approaching this piece because it allowed me to think more of the Eric sketch of the Castle of Four Sides as like, what is it really in the world? Like, because he has just kind of a sketch that just goes down into rocks and stuff. And in my mind, I'm like, but it's literally the borders of the kingdoms. And so I wanted to show how like the Aetheron side, you have a lot of like cathedral type stuff is a little more, not necessarily churchy, but like medieval Europe, and it was straight up medieval Europe. Whereas on we're seeing Zylona's flock side also, it's more organic and more, it's very hinted at and indicated here. But in my mind, I'm imagining more like you're seeing like tree stuff, like stuff that you would see in Lord of the Rings from the elves and whatnot, where it's a little more
cool.
different. And then likewise on the other side, where you're dealing with Leoseer, of having it feel a lot more like a heavy military fortress kind of a thing.
In the back here, yeah. Look at you. Love it.
I mean, stuff like that, where it's like I can really only hint at it a little bit here. But I love getting into the architecture of Mythic Legions in general. What I always try to do, anytime I'm injecting any of it, I always feel a little bit like when I see other artists, I'm not trying to poo-poo on other artists, but a lot of times other artists will come into this and they'll just do a straight up plain castle. You know what I mean? It's like, no, the architecture needs in Mythos, the architecture needs to tell a story. It's been there for a while. It's got a whole culture of diverse beings and creatures that made this thing, so it should show through in the architecture. So even if you as an artist are taking just another, it's like, yes, put the castle tower there, but then like put something else around it that's a little bit otherworldly or just a little bit different, or that kind of a thing. Necronominus piece was again another fun one because I was looking at a lot of Eastern temple kind of stuff, like Asia or India, and just looking at the way some of their walls were constructed and things like that, and then throwing a little bit of an alien take on it, just to make anything fun.
you're speaking my language. You're speaking Ted, my brother's language. That's so much of what we often find ourselves doing when we're looking at these figures or the new reveals of like, huh, what do you think they were looking at and thinking about? And you know, we heard so much about that even when Cameron was talking about how he paints, like telling a story. And so I really appreciate the notion of everything you all do is imbued with story and larger significance in the world, and that you're actually looking at real world stuff to kind of inform what you do. It's great. It's great. You mentioned this was the border, right? This is that center point, and so that came to us here, and I'm sure, like, you also did the artwork for the map. Is that right? The original map.
Yep.
So it's so cool. You're like playing with architecture. You're playing with obviously like figure design and all that. And there's a little bit of like probably studying weapons and like war and all that kind of thing. Even lighting a fire. What does flames look like and lightning look like? And then you're like, I'm gonna be a kind of cartographer and create this
world building. All of it's just world building at the end of the day. Yeah.
And at the end, and so that I guess is the good transition to this, right? Because we saw this for so long. And then at GCon, there was this beautiful reveal. As you say, there was so much more to explore in Mythos. And we got to see this. And I pulled the Photoshop enhance to kind of just give us a better sense of what's out there. Not fishing for any story stuff, but just that, like, now you get to draw a couple of other maps, and you get to more importantly, to your point about thinking about architecture and cultural influences. My assumption is that on every continent there's a different culture or cultures with long traditions, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you all have to share for us. And that's all I'll say. We don't have to talk more about it. But I'm excited by this kind of stuff. And anytime you can give us a tease that's not just a paragraph, but has a compelling visual, I say thank you. So, awesome. And so in other words, I'm trying to give you some job security. No.
Yeah. Thanks.
Which brings us, I think, to the end. Oh, not so much here. Like, this was an older painting and there was this dragon, right? Yeah. But that brings us to kind of, and we'll probably have to end here, to this, right? This is this is the bigger than an elephant in the room, right? This is Baertsch, who was coming, and we've kind of spoken around it for a little bit. You now have to figure out what is easily the largest box you've ever had to do for Mythic Legions. I don't know how it's gonna compare to, say, Castle Grayskull and some of the other large things you've worked on, but it's up there.
Yeah, it's up there. I think it will be the biggest painting I do, and I hope my computer can handle it.
I was going to say, so you're going to get a new CPU and
the sheer number of pixels that I have to fill for just at 300 DPI. Like, a lot of printers and whatnot will try to go up to 600 DPI. I'm like, this box is like it's a mini fridge. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's a big giant poster. Like, I'm sure, but the thing of it is we're in talks. We have some ideas of some fun things we're going to do with the box.
Nice.
But I think most of it is in my head right now. Like, I will be starting on this painting fairly. I don't want to say fairly soon, but I will probably be working on the beginnings of this painting around Legions Con time, or maybe before.
Okay.
Possibly. So, I mean, if George is listening or watching, he's like, no, we need to get you on that sooner. Yeah. So, I mean, it could be this summer that I begin working on it, but it's going to be big. I want it to be epic. Like, this is, fans have been waiting for a dragon ever since that first card art. And I've been waiting to do dragon artwork for a long time. Like, I love the idea of just getting to go to town on a giant, epic, iconic, bold dragon painting. That's and make no mistake. I mean, we want to see Baertsch in action. I think on this box, we want to see him. Will he be shooting the flame out or not? Maybe we have 3 different boxes to play with too. There's the other side.
That's what I was gonna say.
So it's one of those things where it's like, can I do 3 different boxes, or do we need to try to make it one piece of artwork that'll be on all 3 boxes? I don't know. If we just go with the one, though, I have to make that epic. It has to be. I mean, it's going to be one of the biggest things I do for this line and this property.
Yeah. Well, for now. But yes, I think right. No, it's exciting, and
I still want a Castle of Four Sides playset.
I was just gonna say, like, that came up earlier, and I was like, this is the Eternia essentially, right? And to think that it's gonna have the 4 different sides, because if you're doing the artwork for that, you're gonna have to, you can't just show artwork of one side or 2 sides. You're gonna have to find a way. But anyway, before we get ahead of ourselves, you got this to work on. So I guess just a quick question on process. Do you do rough sketches? Like, how does that? And then maybe someday see some of your rough sketches, whether it's in the form of an art book or on Source Horseman. Is there any thought about that?
Yeah. A lot of pieces I do still have some roughs for, but a lot of them, the roughs become the paintings. Again, because of the way I work, I have to deal with a lot of layers as it is. Just by the nature of putting a box together and dealing with layout and dealing with all the text and all of that stuff. And even within the artwork itself, there will be paintings that have a variety of layers. So I try to simplify as much as I can.
Okay.
But having said that, I think with the dragon and knowing that we have Bradley Treadaway on our team who likes to put videos together, I will probably be more cognizant of taking time to save out stages along the way as I work. More often than not, yes, to answer your other question, yes, I do start with concept sketches. We review them as a team together. We get input from anybody that wants to give input. For the most part, though, honestly, it's like I'll just throw a rough together and everybody's like, yep, that looks great, run with it. And I just run with it. And that's
okay.
what it is. But every once in a while, some things will have to iterate a little bit. And then likewise, when I get to the end of a piece, every once in a while, Jeremy or Chris or George or someone will look at it and be like, you know what, I'm not feeling what's happening here. Let's spend a little more time on it or change it up a little bit. But that's few and far between whenever that has to happen.
Very cool. Well, I know this was a special sort of Saturday edition, and we've got lives beyond this YouTube live stream stuff. So one, I appreciate you coming through. It's been a minute since we talked online. I think it was for Motu Revolution.
Yeah,
when we got to speak.
That's a whole other show we could have.
Yeah, well, that's a thing. There's so much more that we could talk about. So anybody who is gonna actually look at the links once I post them, you'll kind of see all the artwork that I had pulled. I always try and pull extra just in case, and I have fun with it. It's also my way of curating your work so I can have a quick list of links to look at. So
that's the wife giving me the
stern. I know. I see it. 2 minutes, 50 seconds over. Yes, no, 100%. And I want to respect that. But hey, I appreciate you for coming through. Folks, again, you should definitely check out, if you're not for whatever reason following Nate Baertsch Art over on Instagram, please do that. And if you're in the California area or nearby Sacramento and it's worth the drive, I would say come out to the Mythic Meetup. Nate will be there representing the studio. You can ask him more of these kinds of questions there. And then I will leave you on the hook for maybe we can come back together and we can finish the conversation and keep talking about stuff. Because
I would love that. I feel like I cut you too short here. So
you did not. And no, it's all good. It was great. So this reminds me of the conversation with Jeremy when I got to kind of talk design with him, and this time get to talk art. And it's all the stuff that I want to ask when I see you, on streams and stuff that like doesn't come out. So I'm like, this is my chance to do it.
No, I love it.
Plus, we'll see each other May 3rd.
Yes. I can't wait.
Cool.
I cannot wait.
I will throw out there one tease for folks. There are going to be a series of giveaways and prizes, both at the meetup and in the next couple of streams here. Nate has committed to sharing some of his older prints to give away. So I'd say come back for that. Is there anything else you want to let them know to look out for in your world that they should be aware of?
just keep your eyes on your emails, folks. Sign up to our email list at Four Horsemen or sourcehorseman.com. If you think we've stopped and taken a breather after all of the dragon stuff, you're sorely mistaken. Your wallets are sorely mistaken.
Absolutely. That's what I just find fascinating, because part of, I just keep seeing the story evolve, what you do evolve. We didn't even get to talk about Infinite Legions and which is going to be a whole other beast. And
we need to do this again. That's all there is.
Yeah, we will. So thank you.
Might be happening soon. And after that happens, maybe pull me on again.
Okay. I love it. And I appreciate that. So thank you to everybody who came on a Saturday. I will have a show tomorrow. Again, that's with Owen Ertling and Stefan Delatour of Detour Customs. And we'll continue to talk more about the Mythic Meetup. So let's go ahead and now say goodbye to Nate. I hope you have a wonderful Saturday, Nate. Thank you again. I'm going to go and start the music. Feel free to just go, because I know you got to go. Awesome. But in the meantime, let's have some fun dance music, and we'll say goodbye to the folks.
Bye.